Hi, everyone. I am Savannah Leaf, Director of Earth Mama, and I'm going to be moderating today. I've got Ramata here, who's our director and writer of Banel Adama, and I'm very happy to be speaking with not only a friend, but an incredible filmmaker. So, hello.
Hello, Savannah. How are you?
I'm very good and very happy that you've asked me to be here. I have so many questions. This film is so moving and so powerful, and
Thank you.
kind of amazing that it's your first film because it's not just the writing, which I know you started as a writer, but it's also like the visuals, it's also the sound, it's like every element and how you've integrated it all into this film. So I just want to start by asking you some questions. And my first question is kind of starts with the center, where the seed of this idea, this vision for this film came from, and how you managed to bring it to life on screen.
I wrote this movie in 2014 when I was at La Fémis. La Fémis, it's cinema school in France. And while watching African movie, I noticed that most of them were very naturalistic and very few
Mm,
dared to explore other form or genre. And I found this sad because this isn't just one African cinema. There is a lot of African cinema. So my main goal was to get away from naturalistic movie
mm,
and propose a new vision, a fresh perspective of African cinema. And I really took inspiration from Harry Potter because I really loved
mm.
Harry Potter when I was
Wow.
young. And, I read a lot of fantasy and literature and tales and also The Lord of the Ring. So, and later I discovered magical realism through authors like Toni Morrison or Jason
Mm.
Ward or Gabriel García Márquez. So I really took inspiration from literature to write this film because I really wanted to create a tale with a touch of magical realism.
Wow. I love that Harry Potter was an
Yeah,
inspiration. That's so great. And you can definitely feel Toni Morrison in this 100%. I think I've heard you talk about Sula.
yeah,
Yes.
the
Yeah.
one of my favorite book, really.
Yeah. So, so powerful. Okay. So my next question, sorry, let me just pull this up. Oh yeah. How did you balance all these beautiful themes and elements like social conflict, love, the environment, tradition, responsibility into this narrative, and where did that come from?
Yeah, it all started with two ideas. The first idea, I wanted to write the greatest love African movie. It was really my main goal. And secondly, I really wanted my story to take place in Senegal, the country where my parents were born and raised. And in Senegal, we are really, really, really traditional. So I've always wondered about the place of love, in this very traditional communities where
Mm,
arranged marriage were and still are today the norm. Initially my story was much darker. The plot was set in a village where love didn't exist at all. But I
mm,
changed that because after school I went to live in Senegal and I realized that despite arranged marriage and tradition, there is a lot of love,
mm,
simple and pure love, even in arranged marriage, because my parents were in a arranged marriage. And,
mm.
after 50 years of marriage, I, I really see the love of, between my parents. So I realized I was focusing in the wrong subject. My story
Mm.
wasn't actually about love, but rather about how a free and passionate and loving woman can find her individuality in a traditional community.
I love love.
Yeah,
Um, and finding it within tradition is also like a really interesting balance because I agree with you. So much of cinema is like it's one or the other. It's like you're resisting tradition, um, or and there's no love, or it's all love and no tradition, you know? And so I think the balance of that is really interesting in this film.
yeah, and also I think the balance is because I live as a traditional and French and Senegalese young woman. When I was young, I was struggling between tradition and love
Mm.
and everything. So I think this story, it's also my story. I'm Banel and I'm not Banel, but I think this story, it's also my story.
You can definitely feel that, and just like who you are, but also who Banel is, and Adama is, just like feeling their relationship. But I feel like I've gotten to know you, and I've gotten to know the film better. Like I saw the film once
Yeah,
in Australia, and then I saw
yeah,
it
I
in New York
remember.
like months, and it shifted seeing it across those time. How did you approach the visual storytelling? Especially with the beautiful Senegalese landscape and how personal that is to you.
In this movie, I was on mission. I didn't want to make this film a big postcard full of cliche with sunset, barefoot children, and an African woman in traditional outfit smiling. The cliche that we used to see, everywhere. So I wanted to avoid that kind of image. So I decided to break and deconstruct that stereotype by the film color palette and visual to banner emotion. The imagery of my film reflect the young woman emotional state. It was really important for me. At the beginning, when Banel is so in love and happy and passionate, warm and pastel color dominate the screen. But as her love story goes so wrong and so crazy, the color fade and the image become whiter and rougher. The visual of my movie truly become a mirror of vinyl art.
The palette is so rich throughout the film, and I feel like even in the way that you're framing how they are like together and how they mirror each other, or when someone sits in like a stream of light, it feels like very considered in every element, or even in the way the landscape is shot and the shadows cast across the landscape, and how that kind of creates like a wave of emotion. I think it really reflects what she's going through.
I really took inspiration from great painter because I really love painting and art and modern art and contemporary art. So I wanted to compose painting and tableau in my movie. So I took inspiration from Van Gogh, Edouard Munch, but also Amwako Boafo, who is Ghanaian, or Kerry James Marshall, who is African American.
Almost feels like a storybook of like paintings, every frame so considered. And yeah, I totally feel those references in the imagery. Okay, so going to the screenplay, like what inspired you to write this screenplay? Tell us the very beginning, like what was where did you start with those words?
A lot. That is a big and very, very long question. As I said, I really wanted to write the greatest African love story. It was my main goal to see a real and true love story take place in Africa. And secondly, I really wanted to create a complex and strong and profound and selfish and even mean African female character. I deeply admire complex, strong, and sometimes mean female character. You talked about Sula earlier. So yeah, I took inspiration from her. I took inspiration from Lila, in the book My Brilliant Friends from Elena Ferrante, also Medea, Lady Macbeth, and Phèdre. And I always said that I wanted to write a Juliet who will slowly transform into a Lady Macbeth. So here too, I was on a mission. I wanted to break the cliche about the African woman that we used to see on movies. The African woman who is always oppressed and victim and everything. I really wanted a strong woman, even a woman who is a little bit and scary.
What was the most rewarding part of this process, as this is your first feature film? What did you take away from it as this being your first feature film?
So I have to be honest with you, but I think you already know that. So I have to be honest with everyone now that the film was released and everything. So I never wanted to become a director. And I don't know if I want you know, to be a director and direct a second movie. I know that I will direct a second movie. Maybe not now because too painful, to do a movie. But as I said, I studied screenwriting at La Femis, and I always wanted to be the most greatest French Senegalese screenwriter in the world. I never wanted to be a director, but I'm really happy, that I made this movie because I put this country, this language, and this continent and those people in the spotlight. And it was really, really important to show another vision of Africa and another vision of a woman never seen before on screen. It was really, really important for me. And it's for that I will never regret, to do this movie. And I'm really happy about it. And yes, yes, maybe one day I will say, yeah, I'm now a director, but now I always say I'm first a screenwriter and later I will be a director next.
I really hope you continue to direct. Um, but I totally understand it. You are a writer first, but I think no one else could have directed this film.
That's kind.
Uh,
That's
can you share more about the process of how you developed your lead characters, Banel and Adama? I'm also curious if you wrote all of these characters and then found the people, or if you adapted them at all after finding the people you wanted to play those roles.
no, because I really love to write, so my script was really like this, I always prepared everything. And that's really funny because Mamadou and Khadi are the people who played Banel and Adama are really different from their character. For example, Mamadou is a very, very confident young man. He's really confident with his beauty and with himself, and he's not at all like Adama. And Khadi, on the other hand, she's very shy and even fearful of the world, around her, unlike Banel. So for Mamadou, I had to contain his energy, and I often forced him to stay alone, for hours in a room. And for Khadi, I had to bring out her madness, allowing her to explode like Banel. To help Khadi, to understand more Banel, I showed her two movies, Camille Claudel and The Story of Adele Ash, both directed by François Truffaut. Because in this movie, the female protagonists, both played by Isabella Gianni, of course, are passionate, in love, and fall into madness. Those movies help Hadi a lot, to understand the character of
Because this is their first time acting, right?
Anna.
Yeah, wow. And so what did you do beyond showing them movies? What did you do to kind of build them up for these roles and like build a process for them to take on this film?
I think it was also a lot of rehearsal, we work a lot together, and I think, as my first movie and their first movie, I don't know how to direct. I didn't know how to direct actor. So I learned a lot about them first. I think it was like we had a lot of private conversation. I I don't have a lot of, technical stuff for actor or thing like that. So it was a lot of conversation between them and me. I talked a lot about their character and they talked a lot about them. And I think it's helped them to, mix both, mix, their personality with the character.
Her character, especially, maybe just because I don't know, I'm a woman, but her character is like very easy to identify with, and the kind of strength she has is like what kind of drew me to this film. I think more than anything was like her and how she embodies it and what you guys created together. Going back to screenwriting, what challenges did you face while writing the screenplay? Was there anything that particularly stands out as difficult or things that you had to kind of overcome?
No, because it's always easy for me to write. I love to write, and it's always easy for me to write. I had more challenge during the shooting than in the writing. The script was easy to write because I knew exactly what story I wanted to tell and how I wanted to tell this story. But during filming, if you want to talk about this chaotic shooting, it was so chaotic. It was so hard because a lot of things that the climate, with temperature exceeding 50 degrees, working with non-professional actors whose few were illiterate. All the crew fell sick because of the climate, and there were storms and rains, and we were shooting in a traditional village in the north of Senegal at 8 hours of Dakar. So it was far from everything. So yeah, it was, I think I if you ask me to rewrite Banel Adama, I will say yes. And if you ask me to reshoot Banel Adama, I will think twice before it. I,
I love that. I can't put a finger on a love story that incorporates climate change so naturally into the narrative. And it's probably because it's just naturally in part of their environment and where they live. But I'm curious how you did that and why you chose to incorporate it. Hearing your process during the filming, it sounds like it was affecting you every day. So yeah, can you speak a little bit about that integration into the film?
it was really important to me to speak about it because African people and the African continent are strongly affected by the climate change, despite contributing at the least to it. My movie is not a documentary, so I had to link, the climate change to this love story, and I had this idea during the writing to turn the climate change in to change it into a curse. So as Banel falls into madness, the climate becomes drier and change. So the climate too is the mirror of Banel hurts. So yeah, it was really important for me. I always go travel in Senegal in those villages because my parents come from those villages, and it's harder for the people living there. It's harder, and it's sad to see that because it's not their fault. It's our fault because we are living here in the Western. And I think I don't know if my movie gonna help to something, but it was at least important just to talk about it. It's what we do with cinema, talk about issue of the world.
Yeah, I think that's what I resonated with it because it didn't feel like you were trying to teach us a lesson or tell us, don't do this or that. It felt like naturally just part of the narrative. And yes, it's a curse, but it allows the audience a bit more to kind of like bring themselves into it without feeling forced into it. And I think that's really rare, especially with regards to climate change, I feel like. Did you have any inspirations for that in terms of other films you saw do that or
No, no. For the climate change, no. But when I was writing the script in 2014, I didn't have any inspiration for the climate change. But during the shooting, I rewatched Dune, the movie Dune,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and also Mad Max, the first one.
Oh
You know,
yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah.
yeah, when she's on the desert with the sand,
Yeah.
and she's cream, and this scene is really, really, really beautiful.
I love those references.
I watch movie for the visual of what is the
Mm,
great storm, and it's always with VFX. And we did that in Senegal too, and it was the first time that a crew in Senegal have a big, visual effect to do. So it was really complicated, but I think at the end we were super, super happy because everyone at the end of a few screening, a lot of people asked us if it's a real storm, and we said yeah, we waited for the storm to to form. But I'm really happy because it feels so true,
yeah.
in the visual and the image in my movie. I hope so. I'm telling that because
Yeah.
I'm proud, but I hope
No,
so.
I can only imagine it. It's also very realistic to what is happening. But yeah, it felt very real, and the effect of it was kind of like powerful. The aftermath, the visuals that followed were really powerful. This film is totally different, but also I can see the references like now that you're mentioning them.
Yeah, that's so weird because my references are like big blockbuster, American blockbuster, and I'm a small, tiny African author and independent movie. So, but I tried to do something, and as I said, it was really important for me to not do a naturalistic movie, and try
Yeah,
something at the end and show that in
yeah,
Africa we can do also that kind of movie like Dune and Mad Max, even if
exactly.
we don't have that money, that kind of money.
No, but this is like your version of like a Hollywood, cinema movie. This is that, and I think obviously with a smaller budget, but
Yeah,
um
really small budget.
but it's not like you don't feel the budget size, I wasn't looking at that VFX shot and thinking like, oh, they must have had no money to make this movie.
Oh, thank
Is
you.
Can you share any memorable moments or stories about your experience working with Kadi Manet?
Yeah, and that challenge and experience because it was a secret for all my press tour, but at the end, in my last screening in New York in June, I said everything. And yeah, the challenges is what Khadi was 4 months pregnant at the start of filming, so 6 months by the end, and we found out that this is not happy news for me. 3 weeks before filming started, and recasting was impossible at that point. So we had to choose between canceling the shooting or go on with Hadi. And so I, chose the second one. And in the first months, our belly was really flat and we were so thrilled. We were so happy. But after 4 weeks of shooting, her belly suddenly grew so big. And we found ourselves with the belly of a 6 month pregnant woman. And at that time, I cried. I cried. I really cried because I was like, what I'm gonna do? Because in this movie, Banel is a woman who doesn't want a children, and Hadi has a belly like that. So with my DOP, Amin Berada, we had to adjust our shot and eliminate certain ideas because of that.
Mm.
But at the end, everything went well, and in the movie we don't see at all that Hadi is pregnant. So that's cool. But I
Yeah,
cried.
it
I
probably
cried a lot.
adds yeah, it probably adds also like a layer to it that maybe you're even unaware of, I think that's interesting.
I didn't tell to my editor that
Yeah.
Heidi was pregnant. I kept the secret. So when he watched the rush, just after the movie, he didn't notice that Heidi was pregnant. So I was relieved. I said, if my editor with all the rush,
Yeah.
didn't see that she was pregnant, it's okay. And at the end, it was okay.
I'm trying to remember it. Am I remembering it wrong? There's like a one moment where you see her with a pregnant belly, like it's a dream.
Yeah, because
Yes.
I used that because
Yeah.
I wrote this scene during the shooting because I said if she's pregnant, I'm gonna use that. I suffer a lot because of that. So I added a scene during the shooting of when we see Banel, the character, pregnant. It's a nightmare. It's like a
Yeah.
nightmare because she's really scared of being pregnant and being a mother.
I thought that was like a really important part of the film, though. How did Paddy's performance impact the overall tone of the film? And did it shift things for you at all?
I didn't imagine Banel like this. Khadi, her body or her skin color. In the script, Banel was very dark, almost blue dark
Mm,
and blue black skin. But Khadi brought strength, to the character through her eyes. I really love her eyes because the
mm.
first time I met her on the street, her big eyes were staring at me with magnetic intensity, and I immediately knew that she was my Banel. It was like it's
Mm.
love. It's like a love story. I know that I'm sure that you had that with your character too. When when you know.
Yeah, you can keep trying to look elsewhere, but your like head is
Yeah,
like, no, there's only one person, and it's this
yeah.
person.
I advocate, to do the casting with my casting director, but at the end, it was her.
Yeah. Wow. I love that. And you were the person that saw her on the street, right?
Yeah, because she didn't come to the casting. She didn't care about the casting. So I was so desperate. I already had seen maybe 100 girls. And one night I was walking on the village and I saw her and I asked her to come to the casting the day after. And she said no. So no, she said no, but she's really shy and she said no. And I said, why? And she said, no, I don't want to. And you don't want to play in a movie? And she said, no, I don't want to play in a movie. And I had to talk with her. And after that, she accepted. And yeah, she can. And when I saw her for the first time, she had a wig. So, and
Mm,
the day after, when she came to the casting, she didn't, I said to her, take off your wig. And when I saw, her short hair, like a tomboy, it was like, this is the second proof that she's my character.
yeah. It also just her saying no to you is also kind of like so the character. Like,
Yeah.
no.
And she's not the character, and it was like the character. And I was, okay, okay.
Yeah.
She has personality. I love that.
Exactly. You need that personality to play this role.
Yeah.
I mean, you're kind of answering this last question, but I'll ask it again. What do you think Kadi brought to the role that made Banel such a compelling character?
Hadi is very different from Banel in personality. They have one thing in common, and I was so happy about it because it's all my story. My story is about woman. You know,
Mm,
I love women. I really love
mm,
being a woman. I love women, and it's so hard in this world to be a woman. So I wanted to write something about the struggle and the pain, but also the joy and the happiness to be a woman. Hadi and Banel have something in common, and it's the power of being a woman, the deep and
mm,
complex strength of a woman, a femininity that crush everything, in their
mm.
own world. So, this was Khadi's first film, and even while pregnant, she brought something to the character that I could never have imagined or hoped. So,
Mm.
yeah, I think Khadi truly has a unique strength like Banel.
Do you think she'll do any other acting jobs after
I don't know, but I hope so. I think
this?
Mamadou wanted to. We didn't talk a lot about Adama for him,
Yeah.
but it's always like that. At the end, always the people ask me why the title is Banel and Adama and not just Banel, because I think it's important, to Adama is also an important character for Banel, and I wanted to write a love story, but at the end, they're right. The movie could be just Banel because she's more interesting and more complex, and this is her story.
But I like it. It reminds it that it's a love story and that the love kind of impacts her personal journey.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I'm really
Thank you
happy
to you.
to chat with you, and I
Me too.
really
I'm
feel like
honored.
this film.
I'm really honored to chat with you. Really.
I feel like it's rare to find people, other filmmakers that like you connect with and also connect with their work and like um I just gotta say, I feel very honored to have met you as a friend,
Yeah, me too.
and share this filmmaking experience alongside you. So thank you.
Thank
And
you so
yeah,
much.
bye everyone.
Bye.